Good morning, everyone. Hey there. If you don't know me, my name is Saul. I'm a child and adolescent and adult psychiatrist, and I like to record group casts presenting information on all things related to psychology and behavior and health. And I've done this video before, rather, I did the audio before, but it was just the audio, and I got some feedback from some folks that they really wanted to see something visual and they wanted actually some information. And they've seen my PowerPoint presentations before and they thought this would be a great topic. So I thought I'd re record this. You'll still be able to hear the audio only version if you want. I'm going to leave that up on my channel just because, I don't know, some people might like it. But here it goes with some text, and I hope it's helpful. And so this is a presentation on relaxation meditation and what meditation is all about, and an introduction to meditation. Relaxation is just one part of meditation, but I think it actually helps people really with the stress reduction part of meditation. And so this is what I wanted to focus on today. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so as I alluded to, meditation can actually reduce a lot of stress. And it's important to understand that when we're trying to develop expertise or proficiency in an area, we have to understand that it's a collection of skills, not just one particular skill. And that applies to meditation just like anything else in life. So if you want to get good at meditation, you have to understand that it's a bunch of different skills, not just one particular skill. Today, we're going to focus in on the relaxation part and a little bit of the others, but I'll probably give some separate group casts on the other skills as well. So let's jump in and start with the relaxation part. Just a word about where meditation comes from. It's something that shows up in a lot of different traditions, and I've heard from a lot of folks that sometimes they're a little bit hesitant to dive into the meditation world because they've associated it with a certain tradition, perhaps Buddhism or something of that nature, and they're worried. Naturally, that this might not be compatible with their own set of beliefs, whether they're Christian or Jewish or any other of any of the traditions that people grow up in. But I think it's important to understand many traditions have meditative and contemplative practices, and Buddhism doesn't own meditation. Meditation comes from a lot of different practices. And it's also been studied now with Western science. Mindfulness-based stress reduction is an evidence-based method, and it's been studied by Western science. So I think you can learn the skills and the expertise without necessarily agreeing with the moral principles or the existential principles of the tradition. And you might find that the practice itself helps reduce stress. And I don't think you really have to be committed to all of the other stuff if you're not interested. Of course, you can be if you want to be, but it's not necessary. And I think anybody can learn these techniques. All right, so let's talk about how we usually go through life, just as a way of contrasting our usual way of doing things in contrast to what I'm going to be teaching you about meditation, because meditation really is a different way of doing things. The usual way we go about life, I think, at least in the culture that I've grown up in, the United States and what we might call Western culture, we expect the world to be predictable. We predict that the world is predictable and that it will be predictable. And this makes sense because we've actually engineered the world to be predictable. A lot of smart people have gotten together and figured out how to do a lot of really useful things, and they've figured out the physics or the biology or the chemistry, and then they've figured out the engineering, and they've figured out how to make it all work and be very, very predictable. So you get in your car and you turn it on and you step on the gas and the car moves and it goes faster. If you step on the gas, even more, the car goes even faster still. And this is very predictable. And another way of thinking about this is that we expect 1 plus 1 to equal 2. If we get in the car, that's 1, and we step on the gas, that's another 1, 1 plus 1. We expect that to add up to something more, i.e. the car goes faster. So we've engineered our world to be very predictable. 1 plus 1 equals 2 a lot of the time in our world, which has been engineered such that 1 plus 1 equals 2. That's the usual way. But the thing is, in the world of behavior, things aren't so predictable. The world of behavior is not generally a world engineered by humans. We try to. We pass a lot of laws and we spend a lot of time trying to regulate people's behavior, and we try to engineer the world of behavior. That's true. But it's really more, I think of the world of behavior as really more of a world where natural relations tend to predominate. Because it just seems to me that no matter how much time and effort we spend passing laws and talking about regulations and trying to make recommendations about how people should behave, it doesn't always add up. And just as frequently as not, we get some very unpredictable responses. So I think in the behavioral world, it's important to understand that 1 plus 1 does not always equal 2, at least not in the way that it happens when you get in your car and you step on the gas. In the behavioral world, the car does not always go faster when you step on the gas. In fact, sometimes the car just doesn't go anywhere at all, or maybe it goes in reverse. And as a provider in the mental health world, I see this all the time, and I've gotten used to it. But those of you out there who don't work in the world that I work in, you might not be used to it. So I just wanted to provide some information about that and some orientation. This is the world of behavior, and meditation and meditative stress reduction is useful in the world of behavior. And just because that world is different, we need a different approach. Now, here's the thing. In the predictable world, that is the world where 1 plus 1 equals 2, when you have some stress, like if the car doesn't start, you just get on the phone and call a tow truck. That's totally normal. And more often than not, the tow truck arrives and they take your car to the mechanic and the mechanic fixes it, and then you get your car back and it's nice and predictable. And we all, I think, kind of understand how that system works oftentimes. Obviously, it doesn't work for everyone in that way, but that's just a model. I'm presenting that as a model of the predictable world. When the car doesn't start, you call a tow truck. But here's the thing. What do you do when the behavior doesn't start? Like I said, in the world of mental health, I oftentimes find that my expectations don't come true. I expect 1 plus 1 to equal 2, but in the world of behavior, it doesn't work that way. You step on the gas and sometimes the car actually goes in the opposite direction. So when a behavior doesn't start, so to speak, you use a different approach. And we can learn to navigate this unpredictable world if we are skillful. We can adopt a different way. We can notice, oh, we're not in the predictable world. We need a different approach. 1 plus 1 is not equaling 2 anymore. And so we can navigate stress in a new way. Instead of thinking, oh, the thing to do is call up the tow truck and have the car taken off to be fixed, we can go about it from a different way. And so that's what meditation is. Meditation is not about driving the car from point A to point B. It's not about calling the tow truck when the car doesn't start. It's just a different way. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just different. And different doesn't mean good or bad, different just means different. And I invite you to try it out for yourself and see if it works. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, well, there's a lot of other options out there. The question is, do you want to do things differently? And you don't have to do things differently. The question is, do you want to? Have you come to a point in your life where you've noticed that trying to call up the tow truck for whatever problems in behavior you're having just doesn't seem to be working? And maybe the answer is no. Maybe you're not ready to do things differently. I accept that. I totally accept that, because I was in that place too for a long time. And then I got to a place where I realized I want to do things differently. And I took a class in meditation that one of my friends and colleagues was giving, and that really taught me a different way. But I gotta tell you, it felt really weird at the beginning, like really weird. Almost like I remember the metaphor that used to come to my mind when I was in my first meditation class. It was like those moving sidewalks, like they have at the airports and places like that. And you're going along and going along, and all of a sudden, and oftentimes I walk while I'm on the moving sidewalk, so I'm moving pretty fast. And then when I get off, boom, it just stops suddenly, and it feels really different. And that's kind of like the feeling I had when I was trying to make the transition from the normal way of doing things in the human engineered world to this different way in meditation. That's the way it felt, like coming to the end of one of those walkways. So the question is, Do you want to learn to have a different relationship to stress? Or do you want to keep trying to drive from A to B? I mean, doing that might be working for you. Option two might actually be working for you. And again, no judgment. Different is not good or bad. Different is just different. And the choice is totally yours. You know, if you choose not to follow this path, I may have feelings about that, but I'm going to meditate with those feelings, and that works for me. And I predict, I predict that the consequence of meditation is that if I feel any stress from your choice, at the end of meditation, I'm going to feel less stress, and I'm going to be more accepting of your choice. And that's how meditation works for me. So the question is how to do things differently. Well, I've talked kind of now over and over again about how meditation is different from driving to A to B. But here's the thing. The urge to drive from A to B might actually arise during meditation. That's something that might come up. I think a lot of people might think about meditation as something that, oh, I'm going to sit and I'm going to have this amazing epiphany, and like the skies are going to open up and the sun is going to shine through, and it's just going to be transformative. But it's not always that way. And we'll get into why that is. But one of the reasons is that urges come up. Urges to do things the way we've already done them will come up. That's normal and natural, just because those are the habits we've developed. And I think we need to understand that practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes habit. And we might be used to practicing in a certain way, and we've developed habits. And just like somebody who maybe tries to learn an instrument and develops some habits, and then they go to a teacher and the teacher says, oh, no, 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 that's totally the wrong way. And you say, well, I've been practicing. Doesn't practice make perfect? And no, practice makes a habit. And sometimes the habit is not helpful. So these habits are common. We commonly drive from A to B, and the habit might arise during meditation. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't need to get rid of it. Meditation is not about getting rid of things, and meditation really isn't about having these epiphanies. It's about having what happens. It's about paying attention to what comes up. And so it is useful to pay attention when the urge to get somewhere, to go from A to B, when that urge arises, it's useful to pay attention to it. That actually can be an object of meditation. So let's talk about posture. Posture is oftentimes one of the first skills that people learn when they're learning how to meditate. And remember, I said that developing expertise or skill in any area is not about any one skill, it's about a collection of skills. So the first skill that I like to teach is posture. And I'm going to just take a moment to pay attention to my posture and make sure that I'm still being picked up by my microphone. The first step in meditation is to pay attention on purpose. We want you to pay attention on purpose because part of the problem is I think a lot of people have probably had the experience of ending up in a meditative state. They might call it, oh, I was in the zone, or I was experiencing flow or something like that. But it's accidental. And just because it's accidental, it's hard to reproduce it. We in the meditation world, we in the mental health world, want people to develop skills on purpose, so they're not just a matter of accident, so they can be reproduced. So the first step in meditation is to pay attention on purpose. And one thing that is useful to pay attention to is your posture, because your posture can support the practice, which is a mixture of both paying attention and being relaxed. And this is a group cast on relaxation. So we're going to figure out how to balance attention and relaxation. We want you to be attentive while at the same time reducing stress. Perhaps that sentence shouldn't say attentive without being stressed, rather attentive while paying attention to stress and being able to manage it skillfully. Attentive without stress that gets out of control, perhaps might be a better way to say that. So we want some attention, but not so much attention that it contributes to the stress, not so much attention that you are in tension, you are like that kind of attention. We want it to be relaxed attention, but we also don't want you to fall asleep. We want you to be relaxed without falling asleep. So we are cultivating something here. We are not driving towards a destination. This is more like a cultivation, like a gardener might do. And we are cultivating relaxed attention. And those two can go together. As I said, we're not so much driving somewhere as cultivating a garden. You can think of it as cultivating a method. Um, and this is a method or a garden, if you will, if you like that metaphor. If you don't, you can just think of it as a method. A garden or a method of relaxed attention. So here are my suggestions. This is what works for me. But there are many ways to meditate and many different postures. And you can try meditation while you're walking. You can try meditation while you're lying down. But when I'm sitting, this is what I like to do. I like to make sure my feet are flat on the floor. I think this is because when my legs are crossed and my feet are kind of twisted, I just don't feel as solid. And I like to feel solid and purposeful when I'm meditating. I like to feel like I'm doing it on purpose. I put my hands on my knees, but some people will put them, kind of more crossed in front, or, who knows? I mean, you can cross your arms in front of you if you want. You can try all kinds of different ways. But I like to put my hands on my knees. Again, it helps me feel on purpose. It helps me feel purposeful. Make sure that the back is held straight. The spine should be as much as possible held in a straight midline position. This is what I like to do. I like to pay attention to my shoulders and make sure that they are not kind of up, scrunched up. That would be a tension with that kind of tension. I want to have the relaxed attention. So I like to make sure that the shoulders are nice and relaxed down, just kind of pulled down by gravity. And then the chin kind of gets tucked slightly forward so that the back of the spine can elongate all the way from the lower back up to the neck and the cervical spine. And it all kind of just gets aligned for me. And like I said, it starts to feel very much like it's being done on purpose. Now, what you can do in this process is start to bring your attention to your attention, allowing your attention to rest wherever it happens to be. Just start to notice. Where does your attention naturally fall? And I'm just going to close my eyes and I'm going to take a moment to notice. And I would invite you perhaps to do the same. I was noticing sound. I hear a very slight hiss in the background through my headphones. I'm not sure if that hiss will be picked up on the recording, but that's what I'm hearing in my headset right at the moment. And my attention does tend to go there. It tends to go to sound. I would say sound is oftentimes the support for my practice that I find most readily at hand. Okay. Some of you might have had a different experience. You might have noticed your attention falling to the body, to certain thoughts that were going through your mind, to some aspect of the environment, maybe the temperature, or sounds, or light levels. Even when we close our eyes, light is still filtering through our eyelids, and we might be aware of that. Sometimes I'm aware of those experiences we have where you kind of see shapes swirling and eddying in front of your vision with your eyes closed. And sometimes I'm aware of that. Sometimes that is where my attention comes to rest. And remember, we are cultivating an awareness. You might not like where your attention comes to rest. It might come to rest on a particular thought or memory. And you might think to yourself, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. My meditation teacher told me about how when he was learning to meditate, he would oftentimes notice an itch or a discomfort in the body, and then he would think, oh, darn, now I have to sit through that. And yes, sometimes we sit through experiences that are not pleasant, are not as pleasant as we would like them to be. And we're going to talk about that. For now, I want you to understand that this method is based on the fact, the easily verifiable fact, that sensation often enters awareness without the need for us to do anything. This is not like a car. The car needs us to start the car and step on the gas. But sensation doesn't need that. Sensation doesn't need a driver. It just happens. And we can use that. That's part of the practice. Making use of the things that happen without our intervention is actually a critical, I might say mission critical, part of the practice. So I just wanted to highlight that difference and that noticing that sensation enters awareness without the need for us to do anything. Now let's talk about the relaxation part. We can cultivate, it is possible to cultivate a capacity for discipline, for a continuously sustained attention, and a tolerance, a greater tolerance for difficulty. And this is just because the relaxed body is just more tolerant. There is no difficult process that is made better by intolerance, and likewise, there is no difficult process that cannot be improved with tolerance. Let me repeat that. There is no difficult process that is made better by intolerance. Intolerance does not make us better at managing difficulty. Tolerance, on the other hand, does support us in managing difficulty. Tolerance always helps. Now, it might only help a tiny little bit, and the majority of the help might come from just not making things worse. That might be true. It might not help as much as you want it to help. I'll validate that. But just by not making things worse, I think we're going in the right direction. To relax, this is what I like to do. Again, this is just a suggestion. If you find other ways, that's fine. Different is just different. It's not better or worse. I like to bring my attention to the face, to the facial muscles, which are oftentimes used for communication, like I'm doing right now. I'm speaking, you're seeing facial expressions, you're seeing me move my body, make gestures. I'm communicating, and hopefully I'm cooperating with all of you. That's my goal, is to make these group casts so that we can do more cooperation. And I actually have an idea for an entire group cast on the subject of cooperation, so stay tuned for future postings. But right now, right here in this moment, I want to point out there's no need to communicate. There's actually no need to cooperate with others. If you're sitting with your feet flat on the floor and your hands in whatever meditative posture, on your knees, for example, practicing attention, that's not about communicating to others. Meditation is not about anything else but meditation. So you can safely relax the muscles that you usually use for communication and cooperation. You can allow those facial muscles to take a break. They're not necessary right now. You don't need your facial muscles for awareness. In fact, you might actually find that your awareness improves when you are no longer diverting energy to your facial muscles. That's part of the point of relaxation, is that It allows us to use energy where it is most useful. Meditation is not about anything else. It's not about communication or cooperation with others, at least not in the moment. And so you can safely allow your facial muscles to relax because they're not needed. To do this, I like to pay attention, bring my attention to my facial muscles, and see if I can detect any tension or stress or difficulty. Is there tension or stress around the forehead, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth? I just kind of tend to bring my attention to the entire face and notice, is there any tension anywhere? Your attention can come to rest on any sense of tension, and then oftentimes what happens is it starts to soften and release. I've noticed this many times in meditation. If I have a little bit of a ache in the back or an itch somewhere, if I bring my attention to that spot, it oftentimes releases. And so if you bring your attention to your facial muscles, cultivating the desire to relax, allowing the process to occur. Again, this is not about trying to drive anywhere in particular. It's about allowing a process and cultivating a process. The tension can naturally release itself. And as it naturally releases itself, you naturally will have more energy available to proceed with the meditation. You might be able to move on to another part of the body. And the process can simply repeat. The same process that you brought to bear on the facial muscles can be used on any muscle. I oftentimes will proceed from the facial muscles to my shoulders and simply allow those, again, to relax under the influence of gravity, reminding myself there is no need to do anything. Meditation is not about anything else. And so it is quite safe to allow those muscles to relax and not be engaged in any project. And as your energy gets redirected from engagement in some project, it can be redirected to simple awareness. Remembering that sensations will enter the body without you needing to do anything about it. It's a process that can occur all on its own, without any effort on your part. And so you can begin to proceed resting awareness on something. A sound, a pressure, a sensation of tension, a light source, your breathing. All of these can be places where you rest your attention, noticing how the process unfolds in its own time, without any interference or engagement from you. Likewise, the muscles can relax in their own time and in their own way, while you cultivate awareness, not demanding it, not driving the car or the body in any particular direction, merely cultivating awareness and then noticing where it shows up. This can be a more natural response, a response more in line with the world that has not been engineered, a response more in line with a world that can be somewhat unpredictable. You might not be able to predict where your attention is going to land in the next moment. But this does not mean that you have to be overwhelmed by that landing. By being solidly and purposefully present with that landing, you may cultivate a different type of response. A response that tends towards relaxation, and at least not making things worse. But I'm here to tell you that the promise of this practice is that over time, you will progress. Progression leads to improved skills, what we might call expertise, which is a collection of many different skills. And the fulfillment of this practice over time is a reduction in stress. As we cultivate these more natural, relaxed, attentive responses. And the reason I teach relaxation at the beginning is because we know that as the muscles relax, it tends to send a message to the brain to also relax. And as we practice this approach over and over again, we develop the habit of being more relaxed and more tolerant in the face of difficulty. And I do truly believe, you can check this out for yourself, I do truly believe that tolerance improves our ability to cope with difficulty. Tolerance and relaxation improve our abilities to cope. This is not about mastery. Mastery is what happens when you get in the car. But we are doing something different. And so I hope this has been helpful. It's been a pleasure talking with you today. I'm looking forward to our next group cast. And until next time, keep on learning.